Over the next 12 months, the way you use your iPhone is going to change forever. And it all starts today. Welcome to iOS 27. Okay, I know that sounds ridiculously dramatic, but this is YouTube. If I don't grab you in the first couple of seconds, you're already gone. But thanks for sticking around. This is going to be a really interesting video, so let's get into it. Today, Apple have just announced a whole new raft of features coming to your iPhone later this year, and we're going to explore them together. Don't worry though, this isn't going to be like a technical deep dive full of developer jargon. I want to show you what these features actually mean, why they matter, and how they might just change the way you use your iPhone in the future, because I find that genuinely exciting. Every year I look forward to the Worldwide Developer Conference more than almost any other Apple event. In fact, last year I was lucky enough to attend in person at Apple Park in California. This year I'm back at home watching from my sofa like everyone else, and honestly, I love it just as much. For Apple enthusiasts like me, this is a little bit like Christmas Day, because whilst most people see their iPhone as a device they carry in their pocket to make phone calls, WWDC gives us a glimpse into what that device could become over the next year. It's the roadmap. It's where Apple reveals the software features that millions of people all around the world will eventually use every single day. And I don't think you need to be a technology nerd to find that exciting. Software is a little bit like magic. Your hardware stays exactly the same, the physical device doesn't change, but suddenly when you update your phone it can do things that it couldn't do yesterday. Sometimes that's something small, sometimes it's transformative. Just think about some of the biggest changes over the last few years, and they've all come from WWDC. A few years back we had widgets introduced, and that started a whole craze of customizing home screens. Widgetsmith and loads of apps like that helped us put important information right there amongst our app icons. Then we had the ability to change our lock screens, to add spatial photos which are 3D, to have the liquid glass clock, and of course to put key bits of information on the lock screen as well in the form of widgets. Just last year we had liquid glass, which introduced a completely new visual language. It made the iPhone a bit more playful, and love it or hate it, it's a huge change on our devices. None of those things required a new iPhone. They all arrived through free software updates. And that's why WWDC matters, because today's announcements, they're not just about today, they're about what your iPhone will be capable of in the years to come. Let's start with something which might not sound glamorous, but I really think it matters. iOS 27 will make your iPhone significantly faster. We're talking apps opening 30% quicker, photos appearing in the camera roll after you've taken a picture 70% faster, and AirDrop, finally, 80% faster. Now, that last one might seem like a small thing, but if you've ever been stood next to someone trying to send a file before you have to leave, and losing the will to live because it's taking so long, you'll know exactly why that matters. And here's the part that I particularly like. Apple have said these improvements benefit iPhone 11 and later. It's not just the latest and greatest hardware. These speed boosts should be really noticeable even on older devices. So if you've been holding onto an older iPhone, iOS 27 should feel like a meaningful upgrade for you. And any device that runs iOS 26 will also support iOS 27. And speaking of small but meaningful improvements, they've also improved the search feature. This is a thing which indexes everything on your phone so you can find what you're looking for. And quite frankly, up until now, it hasn't always done a great job. Well, this new search system will index everything on your device and keep it on the device safe and secure, but it will build a more complete picture. So it's not just faster to use, Apple are saying it should be a lot more reliable to find the information you're looking for, whether that's a text message or a photo or a website that you browsed in the past. Spotlight should now find all of these things. And while we're talking about small but meaningful quality of life improvements, there's going to be a new message send indicator in group chats and text messages, which means if you're sending a large photo or a video, for example, there'll be a little progress bar underneath showing you how much that video has been sent. That way you can immediately see when it's been delivered, rather than losing it in the thread of the conversation. It's a small thing, but it's one of those that I think you'll appreciate every time you send a message. So last year in iOS 26, Apple introduced liquid glass. This was their bold new visual style, and it's fair to say the reaction was kind of mixed. Some people loved it immediately, but a lot of people also found it hard to read in certain situations, like underneath toolbars when you're scrolling through content. The good news is Apple have clearly been listening to that feedback, because in iOS 27 they're refining the liquid glass experience across the board. More readable toolbars, crisper app icons, and better contrast. But the biggest change, and this is something I never thought they'd do, is they've introduced a slider that's going to let you choose exactly how liquid glass should look on your phone. From ultra clear see-through right the way to fully tinted and much easier to read the text on the buttons. And that's a meaningful shift, because it means that your iPhone can look the way you want it to. You can completely customize the whole interface of your device. And that kind of personalization is something that Apple hasn't always offered, so it's great to see it here in iOS 27. The next set of features Apple introduced are ones that I feel really strongly about, both as someone who works with young people in a school, but also as someone who thinks that the technology industry has a responsibility for our young learners and our young people. So this new set of child safety tools from Apple is a pretty comprehensive set of tools designed to help parents guide and support their children's digital lives. And honestly, I think it's really impressive. So you can have a child account on the device, and you can now convert an existing Apple account into a child account. And that means that you can set the age of your child. When that's started, you can then start adding different filters and controls based on that age. For example, you can choose which apps your child can use on the device from the very beginning of getting their first iPhone or first iPad. And you can start with a really focused selection of apps and add more over time, perhaps when they get older or when they start requesting new apps for school and things like that. And there's also Ask to Browse, which is new and I think pretty clever. This works when your child tries to browse a website for the first time. So maybe they've never used eBay before and they're jumping onto eBay, or whatever it might be. I guess kids don't use eBay very much, but anyway. If your child tries to visit a new website, they're going to have to request your permission first if you turn this on. You'll get a message showing what website they want to access, and then you can tap on it and browse that website for yourself. If you approve it, great, the child can use it, but if not, they'll be blocked from that website. This is the kind of thing that puts parents firmly in control, hopefully without turning everything into a battle. And then children can only add new contacts to their phone with your approval. So that's a really key feature to stop them accidentally messaging strangers that they've met online, because actually you can have that conversation with them, that dialogue, to find out, is this person a family member? Do they go to your school? All of those are really important things. And then we have communication safety. This is something that's been around for a year or two now, and it currently flags messages that may contain nudity or inappropriate content like that. But now it's also going to catch violent or graphic gore content as well, to stop children seeing that in their messages and even on FaceTime calls. And on top of that, Apple are building on screen time quite significantly this year. There's a new time allowances section, which is going to work across categories like entertainment, games, and social media. What's interesting here, to me, is that Apple are going to provide recommended time limits based on expert guidance adjusted for children's age. Apple haven't gone this far before, but it's going to give you as the parent peace of mind that actually a 30-minute restriction on entertainment apps is in line with the expert guidance, whereas a 6-hour limit perhaps is too long. No more guesswork. It'll be giving you a starting point, which of course you can change for your personal needs. And a screen time schedule is also quite interesting. This is going to allow different apps at different times of the day. So if your child takes their iPhone to school, for example, you can restrict certain apps during the school day to help them stay focused and on track. And then when they leave school, when the time hits 3:15 or whatever it might be, those apps can be usable again on the device. This feels like a massive step forwards in supporting our young people to have digital devices in a safe and responsible way, and I'm all for that. Right, well, this is the big one. For years, Siri has been the punchline to a joke that wasn't particularly funny anymore. Apple knew it, we knew it, and today they've done something about it. Meet Siri AI. Now, in the keynote, Apple called this a profoundly more capable assistant, and based on what they've shown today, I'm inclined to agree. So Siri AI is conversational. Not in the way that Siri has always claimed to be conversational, where you ask one question and it either answers it or pretends it didn't understand and sends you to Google. This is genuinely conversational, where you can go back and forth, build on previous questions, and even pick up a thread from days before to go back to things that you asked. This is powered by a dedicated Siri app that brings all of your conversations together in one place. And here's the bit I love. These conversations will sync across all your devices, iPhone, iPad, even Apple Watch. So you can start a thought on your phone and continue it somewhere else. Siri AI lives in the dynamic island of your phone. Swipe down from the dynamic island and you're straight there. The bubble expands into a full conversation thread when you pull it down, and it opens into the Siri app. It feels like this is what Siri was always supposed to do, but it never quite got there. Now, there's a piece of this puzzle called personal context, and this is where Siri AI gets really powerful, because now it can search across your entire phone, your digital life, messages, emails, photos, notes, websites, everything on your device to find what it needs. You don't need to know which app something's in, you don't even need to save it. You just ask and Siri will find it for you. Now, When you first hear that, that sounds a little bit scary, giving all of your data to an AI. But Apple are building Siri AI with privacy in mind, and a huge amount of this data happens on device, and if it's not on device, it's all in Apple's private cloud servers, which means that the data is not being stored, it's not being used for training, and it's not being sold to anyone else. You control your data, Siri AI helps you use it in a more effective way. That's the message that Apple are sharing in this keynote. So Apple demonstrated some genuinely impressive workflows with this new personal context, including a moment which really stuck with me as a frequent traveller, where someone had their visual intelligence open and pointed at a rucksack in a shop, and they asked Siri AI, would this bag work as carry-on luggage for my next flight in October? Siri AI looked up the bag to find the exact make and model. It then found the flight in the person's calendar, found the airline, queried the airline's baggage requirements, and then compared that to the bag it just found and came back with an answer. That's not just a party trick, that's genuinely useful. And these sort of multi-step conversations, these multi-step problems, are now things which Siri can tackle, and hopefully, if the demo and the real world actually are the same, hopefully it can really excel at. This genuinely feels like the promise of Siri from years ago, finally being delivered. Built into the camera is a new Siri mode, and if you've used visual intelligence before, it's very similar. So now as you swipe between photo, video, portrait, you're going to see a Siri option as well, and it's basically a direct line to everything that we've just talked about. Point your camera at something, a plate of food, a receipt, a product in a shop, and Siri AI can identify it, it can look it up, and then it can take action. So, for example, taking a photograph of a bill in a shop, and Apple demonstrated AI actually analysing the entire receipt, breaking it down item by item, and then letting you tap on the items you had to quickly split that between a group of people. Brilliant. All built into your phone. And finally, you can add multiple calendar events from one picture, rather than having to do it one at a time. And because this is linked to the new Siri app, you can go back and revisit things that you've looked at before. It's not a one-time lookup, it's building context, and that's really useful. So very quickly, because there's a lot here and I can make a separate video on each one of these, Apple Intelligence is woven through almost everything in iOS 27. So for example, in Safari, you can now automatically organize your tabs into topic groups. There's a Notify Me feature that monitors websites for you and will alert you when things change, price changes, stock updates, tickets going on sale, and you'll get a notification when these things happen. In Photos, we've got a really powerful cleanup tool. Now, we've had this before, but this is going to work far more accurately, far more quickly, that's better, and work on more complex images as well. But there's also a new Extend tool, which is going to extend the edges of your pictures, great for making a landscape picture into a portrait wallpaper. And a new tool called Reframe, which lets you change the perspective and the composition of a photo after it was taken. I'll be honest, I'm having complicated feelings about Reframe. It's technically really clever, but there's something about reshaping a memory after the fact that makes me kind of pause a little bit. Apple described it as going back in time to adjust the photo before you took it, which is either magical or a little unsettling depending on how you look at it. We'll see how it lands in real life, and I'm looking forward to giving it a try. Over in the Shortcuts app, you can now create a shortcut, an automated workflow, by simply describing what you want in plain English. No complex logic chains, no dragging actions around, just tell it what you want to do. Shortcuts will make that for you, and it will run as soon as you want. And writing tools now includes a proofreading feature which looks a little bit like a light version of Grammarly, which will be attached to your keyboard, so whenever you're typing, you can have it proofread for you to make sure you're not making silly mistakes like spelling or grammar. And then in the Home app, this is quite cool, because cameras can now use Apple Intelligence to describe what's happening in the clip. So instead of scrubbing through the footage, you can search for what was actually captured. When was my Amazon package delivered? And it will find it. And on supported cameras, we can finally have 4K video in HomeKit, which for me is a massive win. And look, I'm really excited about all this. I could probably talk for hours, but no one's going to watch that. And to be honest, if you're still here, wow, thank you. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. I guess I should mention that at one point, otherwise I'm doing a bad job being a YouTuber. But before we finish, there are two things that are worth kind of flagging before we wrap up. So first of all, Siri AI is not going to be available in the EU or China at launch. This is because of regulatory reasons, and Apple have put out a press release about the DMA in the EU and how they're working on a solution there to make it available. This happened with Apple Intelligence before, and after a while it was eventually available in the EU and in China. And so hopefully the same thing will happen again here, but it is disappointing to see that that's not going to be available at launch. And second, the most important thing that I think is worth saying is that everything that I've shared today, everything that Apple have talked about is the beginning. This is the first part of the iOS 27 journey. And what happens at these WWDC events is that all of the developers gather together to get all of these new tools, new things they can put in their apps, new technologies, and then they go away and they include these new technologies in their apps. And that's going to supercharge what apps can do on the phone. So Apple have released loads of updates today, but the real story is what other developers are going to do. So think about what that actually means, and then you'll start getting more excited. Imagine if your favourite fitness tracking app, it knew your personal context, and it adjusted your plan automatically without having to manually log everything. Your note-taking app, your travel app, your shopping app, all of them able to tap into the same intelligence that makes iOS 27 feel so different. So iOS 27 is going to ship in September worldwide, but it's also going to be available in a public beta during July. I'm going to be working on a series of quick tips, so if you've not seen my channel before, I make very short iPhone quick tips to help you find hidden features and make the most of the devices that you have that maybe you didn't realise are there. Please do subscribe, because there'll be loads of videos coming out over the summer and into the autumn, especially digging into all of these AI features to see just what's possible and hopefully to see how capable Siri AI is. So this has been a really interesting WWDC. I've really enjoyed seeing the parental control side of things. I think that's massive. All of the speed boosts, the quality of life improvements, they're going to be really useful. And Siri AI feels finally like what Siri should have been many, many, many years ago. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, for the final time, please do subscribe. And remember, iOS 27 is coming, your iPhone is going to change forever, and this is just the start.